The meeting of the Texas State Technical College Board of Regents is called to order this Thursday, February 8th, 2024 at 10:50 a.m. Jonathan, would you please lead us in the invocation?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, everlasting Creator, thank you for this beautiful day. The recent warm weather brings anticipation of spring and new growth. Lord, spring and new growth is expected at TSTC as well. We ask your blessing on the preparations we have made for growth and renewal. The wise king said, for everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pick up what is planted. Heavenly Father, like the earth that lets go of the old to make way for the new, help us to release what no longer serves us, preparing our hearts and minds for the new paths you have set before us. Lord, bless our plans and to grow and to transform TSTC in ways that honor you. May our work together lead to flourishing for our students, our faculty, our staff, and the wider communities we are privileged to serve. Grant us the wisdom to navigate this season of growth, the courage to embrace transformation, and the strength to foster the harvest we eagerly anticipate. For all this and more, we ask for your blessing, trusting in your divine will. Amen.
Thank you, Jonathan. We'll now determine a quorum. I'll call your name and request that you indicate your presence. Ron Widow.
Present.
Curtis Cleveland.
Present.
Keith Honey.
Present.
Rob Mizzo.
Present.
Lizzie Punnett.
Present.
Ron Rohrabacher.
Present.
Eric Beckman.
Present.
Kathy Stewart is absent, and Tiffany Tremont is present. We have a quorum. You have the agenda before you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion?
I'll move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Next, we'll consider the minutes of the November 2023 board meetings. And you have those minutes in your board materials. Are there any corrections to the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. We've reached the public comment section of our meeting. Procedures for public comments at TSTC board meetings are governed by the Texas statute and the bylaws of the Board of Regents of Texas State Technical College. These laws allow for comments from the public on any item contained on the publicly posted agenda before the item is considered by the governing body. This will be the only time during this meeting set aside for public comment. Section 551.042 of the Texas Open Meetings Act restricts the TSTC Board of Regents dialogue in response to public comments. Are there any public comments? All right, hearing none, the public comments period is concluded. With that, we'll call on our chancellor.
Thank you, ma'am. Adam, thanks. So, for the sake of time, I'm going to try to go really fast through here. But I've prepared a PowerPoint this time, which is a bit atypical, but it'll kind of lead my comments. And there's four main topics: leadership, team growth, student learning, and accreditation. So regarding the leadership team, I wanted to just remind everyone that right about now, we are realizing our first anniversary. That it was about 18 months ago that we began to talk about, are we ready for growth? And do we have the management span, and how are we looking? And we spent the fall discussing that together, and then launched an effort to expand the management team with the goal of ensuring that the leadership would not be a constraint as we realized our aspirations to grow. And so I'd like to report to you, we are storming and norming. We have begun our maturation process. We aren't in full maturity yet. That's something that can take a while because leadership is, the cohesiveness that occurs at leadership is made compoundly more difficult with each new member that you add to the team. So, you know, a team of 10 or 12 is harder to do than 6, but I want to report with all confidence we're making fabulous progress. And to a person, everybody is, and by the way, at least half the people on your flanks are doing a brand new job. They've had their job for a year or maybe a little bit more. And so there is also that. And many of them have been in the season of assessment and retooling. And so we also have operational maturity that'll be going on as each year goes by. But I wanted to just report what I think is delightful progress in terms of all that. And that the goals we had in mind of be prepared for growth are being realized with the moves that we made. So that's my first report. Next, regarding growth, you've heard the theme over and over and over again. And at TSTC, we approach all operational execution, and growth is no different, from many perspectives. But two of the things that we do is we know that everything we do is either a lead indicator or a lag indicator of execution, meaning it either contributes to your desired goal or it is indeed the outcome that you seek. And that in order to get the outcomes, you have to focus on the inputs. That's what you have to focus on. So what is it that we intend to grow exactly? And you're going to hear me mention this over and over again, because we can't afford for people to misunderstand what it is we're trying to grow. The two key things are student placements and their earnings. Those drive the economic impact of TSTC on the state of Texas. Yesterday, I met with the Commissioner of Higher Ed, who was asking Chad and I and Gail and others, how do you feel about your formula? Is everything okay? And of course, we were a little worried. I'm not sure we want to mess with this. But what I was arguing is we want it simple. We want it easy to understand, and we don't want to derail the impact that this straightforward approach gave to our operation. So we might do a little bit of refinement to some of the input variables on it, but this is what we're trying to grow right here. Now we're also added to that our donations. We are with under Patty's leadership, we're heading into the next chapter of the TSTC Foundation, which Keith will remember is a journey we started years ago with the idea that we think the foundation could be more. It's made incredible progress, but now we're in a situation where we can stand on the shoulders of the people who brought us here and go to the next chapter. State appropriations and other revenues, of course, are things that we intend to grow, and of course, market share. Because if there are others who choose to come to the workforce market like us, then our success is often measured by building the market share lead we have over these noisy competitors. So we are starting to measure that. So in the world of lead indicators and lag, this is what we're trying to get to. A way to get there, a lead indicator to that outcome is enrollment. So your management team, there are two things going on here. One is our data analytics group is maturing to really breathtaking levels. They are an amazingly talented team of people in data sciences and data visualization folks who take big sets of data and turn it into information that management can act on. I want to show you a few examples of the weekly reports that, or say in some cases daily, that your management team monitors in order to keep an eye on those inputs that result in the outputs. This is, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces here, and I'm going to show you some more, but essentially this is semester credit hours right here, and what you can see is the latest period is the line on top. So we had 3 years of pre-pandemic, pandemic, and then the new one. Semester credit hours is the unit of education that a student buys. And it's a per dollar kind of thing. It's like, okay, here are the individual learning products, if you will. And then this is the student headcount trend. And this, I'll show you more on this in just a second, but here's our budget. Here are individual locations, and there's a few things I want to point out. If you look at some of the smaller locations where there's always room to grow from a percent standpoint in a significant way, I mean, we have some locations growing 40%, 30% because we put a push on building those programs up in a way that we hadn't done in quite some time. So we're realizing some really good results here. And so overall, what you can see is we have growth in the low teens, 13%. This is similar to what you saw in the fall. 2 days ago, in the National Journal Inside Higher Ed, they reported that the spring numbers for two-year colleges in America is plus 2%. So your college has grown 13. And I'll add one really cool feature is we grew spring enrollment with new students at a record level, a number we hadn't seen in a decade or more. So what it means is the onboarding part is maturing. And we are meeting the student prospect where they want to be in order to get them in. Here's another way we look at it. Okay, so these are contributions of each location to the total tuition revenue. Here's what I want to show you. Here's 2 years right here. The last 2 years are right here. And you can see, you know, the timing of the changes moved a bit, but they were roughly repeats of each other. This shaded area was our stretch goal. This is how much we want to grow. And what you can see is in terms of tuition revenue, we're ahead of goal. We see this regularly, and your management team actively monitors this, as do many people in student learning and marketing. This is the kind of information that the data team provides to us. They take data and turn it into information. And in this case, what you're seeing is various programs. So we're the 8,000-pound gorilla of welding. Yes, sir.
Question on a previous slide, central administration, what's that?
In the bill pattern, Hutto falls under central administration because it hasn't been set aside as its own campus in the bill pattern yet.
Gotcha.
Which is one of our goals with the LBB. We'll see if we can pull that off this cycle. But check out cybersecurity, up 62% against goal. But you can see virtually all of these but one has a nice strong growth, maybe two. Yeah. The bottom line on all of this is we're growing the high value portion of our product mix. If you are a car dealer and you wanted to grow anything, sell more Suburbans because they've got the margin. And so we are growing the things we should be growing. So here is the enrollment yet again, only in greater detail so you can see it. Here's our last 2 years. And this is this year. The shaded part was our stretch goal. We wanted to really knock the top out. So I regret we are below where our goal was, but we are significantly higher. We have an increase of 1,000 students, this brand new students this term. Isn't that right? So this is the sort of thing where we're monitoring those input goals to make sure that our operation is naturally leading to the outputs that we seek to do. And I wanted to show you, this is what we do to help manage that. And these sort of dashboard infographics are available in a wide range of our operational capabilities, and various vice chancellors will monitor the areas that they manage with these kind of dashboards. And this is a strength of ours that is a maturing strength. It gets better as each month goes by, as Dale's team in data analytics find new ways to respond to our questions. Like, where are we on XYZ and where are we on this? At the last presentation I got out of data analytics, I found myself saying to them, you know, for 10 years, I felt like I've been flying a plane without a dashboard. What I could do is I could look out the window and I could see that my wings were level. And it sure looked like I wasn't descending, but I couldn't tell if I was climbing. I was just not crashing. Now you started giving me instruments. I know where we are. And so does your management team. And if we aspire to be bigger and better, you gotta have this. So I'm not aware that there are other schools that have these capabilities, but I can tell you ours is getting better all the time. So I wanted to show you that. Student learning. We have many lines of business. And by the way, most of what I showed you right there is classic college. There was some dual credit in some of those slides. But generally speaking, when I want to go back to the 2%. The 2% that our sector grew was dominated by dual credit. Nationwide, dual credit. Dual credit is a growing part of Cledia's various business lines. But you don't want to bet on dual credit. Dual credit seldom results in a finished employee. It's really just a lead-in. And so for the rest, while they're busy, the rest of the sector, they're busy teaching algebra and history and composition in dual credit and therefore vampiring out of their main college business line. We are using it to onboard people into technical pathways that make a difference. And so our approach, even in dual credit, is completely different, but our growth is on all of our business lines, but classic college is where the real suburbans are. So you're going to hear from Jonathan an update on student learning. This is the season when we like you to see that. So I wanted you to know that. And then accreditation. If you watch the national dialogue about higher ed, and you'll see that higher ed has become a bit politicized. One of the topics that the various polls are looking at is the role that accreditation plays in higher ed. Well before it became politicized, we felt like accreditation could be more appropriately focused on the results that we achieve and not the means we use to get there. By its nature, accreditation focuses very intently on the methods and the means, but pays almost no result to the outcome. And that's classic kind of bureaucratic oversight, okay? there is a growing movement, and we were in the vanguard of that, for people to consider, wait a minute, isn't the final result of the value of higher ed the actual outcome of that credential? And so we are integrated with a group that is moving in that direction toward new accreditation. We appeared just 3 days ago in Chronicle of Higher Ed as an institution that is working with a group who is seeking to set up a new regional accreditor. It won't be easy, and it may not work, but we can't not try. At the same time, we are accredited by SAC-COC and will continue to be a full faith member of SAC-COC. And I wanted you to know, in the topic of accreditation, we have started our next 5-year cycle. So in about 18 months or 2 years, we will be getting our re-accreditation from SAC-COC. SACS is the accrediting arm that does virtually all of the southeast part of America, A&M, UT, the community colleges, of everything from Texas to Florida. Those are and up to Virginia and over. Those are the institutions that are accredited by SACS. And so we are, essentially what we're doing is we're maintaining our heading, but we're helping an alternative get started. And if that were to happen, someday we may consider transferring over to that other one. So I wanted to update you in terms of accreditation. And with that, I conclude my remarks on leadership, growth, student learning, and accreditation. That's as fast as I could go.
Great job. We'll now begin the committee section of the agenda. First up is the Committee for Student Learning and Student Development. I now call on Lizzie Kunis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Student Learning and Student Development Committee met virtually on Tuesday, February 6th, and Jonathan shared some exciting news about where the college was going, in addition to our new members of the team. So it's so exciting to have the new members join us, and it's amazing just to see the experience, the wide, diverse experience that they bring to the table, the expertise and the passion. And so I love this committee because it's really where the rubber hits the road. It's the students. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan so he can present his report.
Wonderful, thank you. Adam, can you pull up the, wonderful, all right. So a lot of what we're talking about in this committee is a follow-up from yesterday and a follow-up from last night, so it's working out really well. I will try to go at the chancellor's pace today. Well done. That's great. We have 2 minute orders in your book, and they're recurring pieces of action that you see from time to time. The first is our program inventory. So we bring that to the board annually. For us to offer a degree program, a certificate program, or associate degree, it requires our board approval, amongst others. And so we submit that to you annually at this time of year. From time to time, an emerging opportunity will pop up, and we won't wait for this time of year to bring that up. We'll bring it up as needed so we can get all the other those accreditation processes and coordinating board processes going. So this is submitted to you. It's not a change. There's no changes requested in it. The full program inventory is in your package on pages 3 through 8. And I'll say, when we submit this to you, it approves these programs at all of our locations. So if we add one of these programs at a different site that it hasn't been before, we don't come back to the board for that from time to time. I'll give a few updates in a minute about some of the new products that are coming to some of our locations. The second minute order relates to this process with our accreditor that's occurring in the next 18 months, who requires on a 3-year basis, our governing board evaluate our mission statement. So we did that yesterday. Chancellor took us through that and shared those annotations. And so we're required to go through that process and make sure that it's still relevant for the current circumstances. We look at that quite often, and we can say we're very comfortable that our mission works in our favor. It really differentiates us. It's narrow in scope, and we don't propose any changes at this time. If there were to be a change, we would have to work through our legislature. Our legislature actually establishes our mission in Chapter 135.01 of our code. So we ask for the board to reaffirm our mission statement, and that will keep us in compliance with accreditation. And I was going to do some of that, but I got done. All right. So now's the time of year where we actually provide an update from a student learning, student development perspective. In the last year, we changed what we call that internally as our operations group. So I thought it might be helpful for us to talk about our role, like who we are. And so I'll do that in the context of our strategic plan. We'll talk about the what. We call it often the production line. And so I want to really meditate on that a bit because I think we've used that language a lot, but we haven't, I think in a while, kind of spent some time really unpacking that with you. So we'll do some of that. Then we'll take a peek back at last year, which was our my team's first year in some of that space. And so we'll reflect on what the work we did in that space, some of the observations we made, and then we'll take a peek forward in terms of what our focus will be. So starting off with, take a look at who we are in that context of the strategic plan. So Mike already talked about this. Chad talked yesterday about, we really have two big emphasis in our strategic plan: growth and transformation. And when we talk about growth, we really talk about it in terms of placements and wages. It's like a GDP kind of measure. It's measuring what's our impact of our production, what's the value we're creating. And so we have WIG 1 and WIG 2. So Eric, our WIG we love acronyms around here. So WIG is wildly important goal, and that comes from the 4 disciplines of execution that we really tried to adopt internally into our culture. So WIG 1 is about production of skilled workers. It's a quantity measure. How many are we actually sending into the workforce? And so we have 3 and 5 year goals on that, and that really is impactful, especially in terms of measuring the effectiveness of our CCAP, our capital construction assistance programs, our new buildings that are coming up. And so it's really aligned with that. And then wages, that's really measuring kind of the quality part of our production. We use wage as a proxy for what's the industrial consumer, the employer, willing to pay for what we're putting into the market. And so this is like all of our strategy is enterprise in nature. So operations has a big role in this, but we're not the only people. We're all working towards this, and we kind of see ourselves as kind of in the middle, right? Michael's team, the marketing team, is out there. They're working. They're doing everything they can to make offerings to the consumer market and bring us students. And then Cledia is out there working with our industrial clientele, and we really partner in terms of identifying what are their needs and how do we build the spec. And so that's the other end of the funnel, and we kind of are in the middle. We're the delivery part of all of that. So that's growth. In terms of transformation, again, we're all participating in these transformational projects. In some cases, we're a heavy user, and so we're participating in it in that way. In some cases, we're responsible, we're an administrator, and what we do know is we're all owners in the process. I'm responsible for operations, but my partners are, 1/10 owners of the process, and we really work in that way. So from a culture perspective, there's a lot we're doing in that space, really trying to drive culture through our operations, our student delivery process, our student learning processes, our student development processes. Finance, what we do really impacts that funding formula. Infrastructure, my friend Rick over here, they're building new infrastructure for us, and they're bringing us in to make it align to our plans and making sure, one part of the family is talking to the other. So none of this happens in a silo. The one that we have responsibility for is production. And if you go back and look at the strategic plan books the last couple of years, we've called it retooling the production floor. So that's what I really want to meditate on that a little bit. Oh. Back. So in 1965, two American classics were born, the Ford Mustang and TSTC. Yeah. And both of them, were born with a production line, right? And the thing that made the Ford Mustang a classic for 60 years, what they relied on, it won't be relevant in the next 60 years. And the same is true for TSTC. In mid-2000s, Elon Musk buys Tesla, and he really starts to shake up the vehicle, the automotive industry. He's a provocateur, and he's imagining there's disruption coming, and they're getting ready for it, and they change the world. About that same time, there was a president of a campus in West Texas that was saying the same kinds of things. Gail was sitting right next to him watching it, going, who's this crazy guy? And he was foreshadowing the world is changing rapidly. And the production lines that have made us a classic, that have made us successful, aren't going to be relevant in the future. And so as he came in as chancellor, he started to really ring the bell. And he said, this world, it's a disruptive world. Higher ed's going to not see it coming. We're going to be ready for it. And so we were getting ourselves ready. We were talking about what might that look like. We had folks kind of developing a plan. We've had some attempts, and they weren't ready for prime time yet. And then the pandemic hit. And it's like, oh gosh, everybody's realizing the world has changed. And our world really, really changed. Higher education wasn't ready for it. But I think we were more ready than most. So that was the moment we said, we're going full speed ahead. We are totally going to transform our production line. And so we attempted this type of transformation during the pandemic. A couple of years later, that's me we're stepping into this role and kind of evaluating where we're at. And so that's kind of where we're at in terms of this transformation. In the end of November, down in Austin, at the Giga factory, Giga, Texas, I got to be a VIP at the Cybertruck launch. And I wasn't a VIP because anybody knew who Jonathan Hoekstra was. I was a VIP because I had TSDC on my shirt. And that was a really cool day. It was, it was amazing to take it all in. And to really, have y'all had a chance to sit in a Tesla, ride in a Tesla? I've ridden his Tesla, I've ridden her Tesla. You have to experience it. You have to sit in it and experience it to know what a paradigm shift that is. It is totally different. That's true of the Gigafactory too. You have to really walk it and see it, hear it, talk to the people, and you realize, dadgum, they have changed everything. They've been very intentional about everything that happens here. And it was a lot of forethought in creating a new kind of experience. And so as I walked away, I thought, that's what we're doing. We really are being intentional about everything. And from the factory floor to what the people are doing, the automation, the processes, we're re-engineering everything. So what is our retooling? Retooling probably wasn't the right word. We're reimagining and redoing everything. And so a lot of sympathy for folks that came before me that were implementing this in crazy times. We really had some wins. It was a really good strategy. And we continue to move forward. We're really excited about this, getting to lead this effort. So that's the retooling. But let me talk a little bit about our production line. So because we were in triage mode when we launched into this, things were just kind of fast and furious. And so this last year, we've really tried to slow down and diagnose, okay, how do we really want to be intentional about this metaphor? And really what we have is two different things that we're trying to build in our operations group: a product ownership, product leadership, which is really the design quality part of our enterprise, and then the actual production floor, the delivery. And so I'll talk in these metaphors quite a bit as I talk about TSTC. We use a manufacturing metaphor because it's helpful from a management perspective. And so we have to wear our management hats and think about things in that way. That's the smart part of doing business. But there's also the healthy part, the leadership part. We never presume these students are objects and that the factory floor is run by machines. These are all people. So we really constantly challenge ourselves not to objectify. So I just always use that disclaimer as I talk about this metaphor, but it's useful. It's really useful for getting efficient and getting effective. So Tesla is not a production floor, and neither is TSTC, right? It's more complex than that. Now, there's only one product going down that gigafactory down in Austin. It's one production floor, one product. Well, TSTC has more than one product like Tesla. And so I think it's important to understand that. But like Tesla, what you expect from all Tesla vehicles, you know, you can kind of have a common thread expectation of all those. We similarly have expectations that are common thread across all of our products. So we have 48 different products, and in different ways, they exist at different locations. Today, it's about 107 unique production floors, and if you add on micro-credentials and different things, it gets really complex. And so it's important to have a very intentional statewide push to drive consistency across that complexity. And so that's part of what we're building. I think it's helpful to understand that. But for example, you know, welding in Waco, that's one of our 107. We have 10 of those across the state today. We'll have 11 in the fall, right? We want every welder that comes through that production line, we want industry to kind of have the same expectations about the quality that they're getting every time it comes across. That was really one of the big points of our merger a few years ago. And we're seeing that. We're really seeing the results of that. Oh, got a little update in here. Like I said, we don't take all of these to you for board approval, but these are some of the upcoming new production lines, or at least adaptations to our production line. We've got Pre-Allied Health. It's a certificate that's being offered out in Sweetwater. Process Ops is being tweaked quite a bit to adopt a lot of the new LNG competencies. It's a real big need. So anyway, we are having new programs, new offerings come up, and I think that's exciting. We haven't seen some of that in a while. We've got some emerging things coming up. The work site here in Waco is going to be a production line on the west side of town. So a year from now, we will be in full operation, right, Ben? All right. We got stuff like that going up in Midlothian, you know, an extension of our Ellis County that's maybe an emerging opportunity for us. Our Denton programs, we've got maybe perhaps we might be entering into some healthcare fields out in Marshall, et cetera. So the production floor is continuing we're having more of those at different locations. So y'all got to meet, so in terms of design and quality, last night you met some folks that is a new leadership team really taking ownership of our products. And so extending on that production analogy, you know, Tesla's, they have their specifications, they got their blueprints, they've got their tooling, they got their resource planning. That's who you met last night. We're bringing that expertise to really shape that product design for us. And that's exciting. What are we retooling? It's everything. It is audacious. It's like that new factory floor that Tesla did. And I think I've got 3 pages of this. I won't go through it all, but these top 2 are really the most important. I think Sir Ken Robinson talks about the educational paradigm, and it's been historically built out of 2 things: culturally from the age of the Enlightenment, and economically from the Industrial Revolution. And so the factory floor is not a new metaphor, but it was all about creating an enlightened student. That's not what we exist to do. We exist to create a productive, valuable worker. And it really is a game changer. It is a real paradigm shift for our industry to grasp. But our curriculum, all of our curriculum in our retooling is going to be deconstructed. In some cases it has been. We've got about 1/3 of our programs that have been through this and really tailored for what the needs of industry are. Teaching methods, the integration of technology. I think artificial intelligence is going to be a big game changer in terms of this effort, the curriculum, the content creation. We talked yesterday about relationship with industry. The next generation production floor is got to be a pull system, not a push system. And so it starts with ongoing collaborations with industry for building our curriculum, building pathways for students, et cetera. That's really what we're talking about in terms of retooling and transformation. All right, so highlights from last year. We spent a lot of time working with our working committee over the last year, really taking them through the sausage making of this. I just wanted to give you all a sense of, we spent about the first half of last year really assessing where are we in terms of this retooling and our readiness for growth. And we had a proposal about mid-year. My partners at the leadership team were really supportive in helping us make some adjustments, making some investments to respond to organizational development, things that we identified, project execution issues that we had identified, being able to respond to the needs here in Waco that were here right in front of us, and really the building of a leadership infrastructure for the operations team. These were focus areas in terms of what we saw as our immediate opportunities. People is really a lot of it. Role clarity, accountability, identifying what behaviors we really need to pay attention to, which areas are we mature on, which are we not. Partnership is a big deal amongst this executive team. It's also a big deal all the way out in the organization. We picked an org structure that just really relies on a lot of interplay, a lot of partnership. And so we really are driving that with our teams. This is how we're structured today. It's really a production model kind of org structure. And so the people you met yesterday are this product leadership, these 7 clusters or centers of excellence. They oversee our statewide programs like welding, like culinary, like cyber security. They are developing our curriculum. They're working with our product marketers and making it very relevant to the consumers that come in the front end, and they're working with our industry relations folks and the industry themselves and really refining that. And then there's product delivery, our campus leadership. And so we've really worked to build some new reinforcement of program leadership. And I say all this because we assessed for readiness. And I've got a couple comments about what we're going to focus on, but the overall comment is we're ready. We are mobilized, we're ready to grow, and we're ready to transform. And we've come a long way in a short amount of time. We couldn't have done it without a lot of support from my teammates, so thank you. So just looking at, again, who we are, this is how it shook out. This is how those centers of excellence really break down across our different program areas. So power and construction, pretty heavy emphasis. Digital transformation, a lot of that's online. Almost the majority of it is now fully online. And so it's really time to create a fully online, an intentionality about our fully online experience for students and for faculty. So that's occurring. I think healthcare, we're seeing some revived energy, some new opportunity in terms of that space. So this will change over the next few years, but it's a very diverse product mix, and I think it really represents some opportunity for us. This is kind of how the production lines work. So these are the 10 campuses, kind of how it shakes out. So probably what you expect. In terms of our highlights this last year, we really built some leadership infrastructure at the campus level. We're real happy to see some of our new leadership come in, leading the campuses. Y'all got to meet them last night. So yeah, we feel like we are ready to deliver on our growth expectations. So next year and the years to follow is a lot about really optimizing the capacities that we have to focus on people, process, technology, and then really being ready for when we open up these new CCAP facilities and other new investments that we have. We're really building a lot of business management maturity. So P&L accountability is a new concept, especially at a program level. That we've made some attempts at that before. We really feel like we're making some strides and building some of the capabilities across the enterprise that'll really help us move the needle. People, I mentioned it before, but culture is everything. Eat strategy for lunch. And so we'll continue to focus on a healthy organization as we grow and transform. And then in terms of the big three, we're really working on our partnership, our engagement with industry. So these are the folks you met last night. They're really going to have accountability about their engagement with industry, their engagement with their peers on the ground. So the designer, they can build the most beautiful car, but if the customer doesn't want it, it's really worthless, right? And so really engaging with those stakeholders is a big part of what they do. And then cross-functional engagement. So the work with folks like Cledia and Kevin and Michael. Accountability. It is a core value of ours, but it is a bit aspirational. And so we're really building those muscles. This team is really going to be not just focused on the what, but on the how. So those relationships, they'll be measured on the quality of those relationships. And then innovation. And that has a lot to do with continuing the work in retooling our production floor, that transformation, PPE, those kinds of things. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions or comments from Regents? No? I just want to, on a personal level, thank Jonathan. I think that coming from the economic development background and meeting with a lot of employers, I feel like this new branding, this new retooling is speaking the same language as employers versus I'm sure traditionally they're used to hearing the academics speak their lingo, but now we are speaking the employer's language. We're aligning to their vision, to their needs, and so I think that speaks very highly in terms of supplying the product. And so I personally think it's genius that we are shifting and really aligning to what our mission is, which is providing quality for employers. So thank you, Jonathan, and that completes our report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Lizzie. All right, now I call on Ron Whittup, Chair of the Fiscal Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the Fiscal Affairs Committee, we met on February 1st to discuss the minute orders and reports in front of you. We have 1 minute order and 6 reports for the board to consider, and Chad Wooten, he will present those to the board.
I'll be happy to. The 1 minute order we have this time relates to contracts exceeding $1 million. As you remember, a few years ago, the state mandated that all contracts greater than $1 million be approved by the board. This one deals with property and casualty insurance. As we talked about growth, our facilities have grown, and they've grown so much that our insurance premiums are now hitting that $1 million mark. We procure insurance through the State Office of Risk Management, which sort of acts as a co-op for state agencies. So we have the purchasing power of the state of Texas and the support from a customer service standpoint, so that really helps. So the minute order reads, the Texas State Technical College Board of Regents approves contracts for insurance premiums where the contracts exceed $1 million and delegates its authority to the chancellor or his designee to enter into and execute any necessary amendments, extensions, or renewals to the said contracts. Any questions on the minute order?
I'd like to add too, just as a reminder, and particularly for new members, that we also provide you a report on a regular basis of contracts that exceed $1 million so that you can monitor the activity.
And we'll look at that report here in just a few minutes. The first report is the quarterly investment report on page 13. A lot of movement here, honestly, in operating funds, and we'll talk more at length about that. You'll see as of November 30th, our total operating funds were down to $30 million. Just a year ago, they were at $50 million, which is quite the shift. But if you will, please flip a couple of pages to page 15. And here we take a longer look at those operating funds and how we've managed our reserves over the last few years. You can see in 18 and 19 and 20, even 21, we built a lot of reserves. We were fiscally responsible through COVID due to the uncertainty of the horizon. And so we saved that money up there. And then, as Jonathan mentioned, and we've talked about, we've really invested in growth in fiscal year 23. Ran a little bit of a deficit. We did hiring, spent more money on marketing. So we plowed those reserves back in. And this is probably another good time to mention that we are an agency. We are technically a nonprofit organization. We're not here to make money. We're not here to generate earnings per share or accumulate reserves. We're measured by effectiveness and efficiency and how well we take the money we are appropriated and put it to use. So all that being said, going back to page 13, the number you see there at 30 million is the very bottom. In fact, we just looked at it a couple of days ago. As of January 31st, that number is now back up to 41.6 million. So it was a timing difference based on the start of the fiscal year, but we are dialing it back up. Any questions specifically? I know that's a lot of information, but wanted to be sure we spend a little time on it. Okay, then the other point of note on page 13 is the bond proceeds at the bottom. We are spending them down. That spending is starting to ramp up as the projects kick off. And then on page 14, we usually look at the interest rates here. We're earning an average of 4.9%, and just in one quarter, we earned $4.5 million in interest income. And the vast majority of that will go to the CCAP projects. It is restricted by law to be spent on those projects. The next report is the pledged collateral report on page 16. Another business as usual quarter here. We did not have any collateral busts. Page 17 and 18 is a summary of the annual financial report, which I think you all have a copy. It's 71 pages of the highest quality reading material around here. But But if you want a two-page summary, we'll give you one, so.
NBA dream.
This is as of August 31st, 2023. And so the same story we've been talking about, you'll see in these numbers. On the balance sheet or the statement of net position, our operating cash was a little bit down. Obviously, our debt took a big jump with the new issuance. And so down at the bottom, we look at one ratio there about liquidity and leverage analysis. Our liquidity went down. We plowed cash into growth. So that was a story for the balance sheet. The second page is the income statement or the statement of change in net position. Tuition, as the chancellor mentioned earlier, from 22 to 23 was pretty flat. We ended up spending the vast majority of the CARES money in 2022, so that revenue went down. And then finally, again, the investment income is growing with the bond proceed investment. Expenses, again, salaries and wages took a pretty good jump as we brought on more folks for growth. And then the ratio we look at there is the operating margin. We've had a positive operating margin for the last few years, honestly, which is why you saw those reserves go up. In 23, we had a negative margin, ran a little bit of a deficit, which I will take a break now and go into one oral report about our bond ratings. As timing would have it, on Tuesday of this week, 2 days ago, Moody's updated our bond ratings. Based on the ratios, as we've seen, I sort of expected them to be downgraded or at least maintain the negative outlook that they had. But they actually kept our bond ratings at A2 where they had been, and they revised the outlook from negative to stable. They cited the strong, consistent state support that they've seen. They saw the latest appropriation bill where our appropriations went up another 35%. And they also saw the growth in enrollment. But they definitely acknowledged sort of what we talked about yesterday. We are highly leveraged and we don't have as much budget flexibility as we've had in the past. And so building those reserves back a little bit while still investing in growth. There's a fine line. We don't want to just build reserves for the sake of it, but we want to manage the growth. Ron, did you want to add anything on the bond rating? I know
we'll get a copy of that to the board, right? That
correct. Yes, there's a 2-page press release and then a little research document as well.
Yeah, and I got a copy of that, and I'll just point to this, that there was I think there's three important sections in there. One was the ratings rationale, and there's a great summary about TSTC in there, but and it's real good for us to understand that. It tells our story. It's our elevator speech, really. And then there's also two other important parts. There's factors that could lead to an upgrade of the rating, and then factors that could lead to a downgrade of the rating. And that's really a strategic thing for us to read that and understand that, and that tells us what we need to do, right? And so it was a great thing that we ended up with a stable, really an upgrade.
Yeah.
And then two, they did a really good job of capturing who we are and what we are, I think, in my opinion, in that report.
Yeah,
so it's good data to look at.
It is, and that's the one sort of true outside oversight look that we get. We don't have a regular financial statement audit from the state, but bond rating agencies, they're like credit scores. When you buy a house, your credit score goes down. And so this is true outside financial professionals looking at our performance. And they did, even on the call to discuss the press release, the analyst confirmed in all the higher educations we look at across the country, we have never seen a funding formula like this. Just totally, and we finally convinced them, you can't compare us to community colleges, to other colleges, and it's sunk in. They said, we know you are a hybrid, is what the word she used, but they acknowledge, because they look at in-depth finances of all the colleges across the country, and we are one of a kind in that
The plan's
regard.
working, we're plowing new ground, which is awesome. Yeah, testament to the team.
So that is the annual financial report summary. On page 19, this is our 2024 budget versus actuals. This is through the first quarter of the fiscal year as of November 30th, and then you'll see our forecast for fiscal year 24. It's early. We've only been through one quarter, so the forecast is likely to change some, but the big highlights in, as the chancellor mentioned, tuition revenue is hitting the budget number, and the budget we stretched it. So to go from 52 million to 60 million, and right now we're forecasting closer to 61 million. So that's good. We've seen student financial aid income and expense go up. As we talked about yesterday, the financial aid landscape is evolving a little bit. There's more aid, specifically there's more state aid the last couple of semesters, so that's going up. One thing I wanted to mention, Jason's report was extremely short today, and the shortest one was an audit he did on a grant. And the report was 4 words, which said no material exceptions identified. And I want to say again about our Office of Sponsored Programs and our grant accounting, they deal with a lot of complicated stuff, and they really embody the value of excellence that we have. And so it's easy to blow through the good reports, right, Jason, because there's a lot to talk about, but I wanted to make a mention of that. In expenses, the one thing of note, we have allocated most of the 6.825 million in the strategic pool. We did another round of merit increases for the year in October. And then, as Jonathan mentioned, we're trying to get a jump start on some of these expansions. And so we've allocated some of those funds to that. But overall, we expect right now, fiscal year 24 to come in basically at break even, hopefully. I hope, you may hope to get it right to zero, but I hope to get a few million in there. So we're on track as of right now. Any questions on the budget performance?
Is our bond debt rate fixed?
The interest rates, yes, they are all fixed. And actually, Moody's referred to that as a strength. We're not subject to interest rate risks. They are all locked in for 20 to 30 years. So, and the good thing is we issued those bonds in November of 2022 before rates really took off. I think they're in the mid 4s, which is pretty good these days.
We do have a history of refinancing when interest rate environment calls for it. And Chad and before him, Jonathan, have done a good job from time to time when we've either just paid it off altogether or refinanced high debt.
And looking forward on debt issuances, in the next legislative session, they will reallocate the Higher Education Assistance Fund, which is capital funds. And typically we issue debt at that time that is secured by that appropriation. We don't have firm plans yet. Obviously, we've got a lot of CCAP projects, but if we do another debt issuance, it will likely be in the next fiscal year after we know what those HEAF appropriations will be. The last 2 reports, on page 21, you'll see the quarterly real estate lease report. This was authority delegated to the chancellor to enter into these short-term leases. And in exchange for that delegation, we provide this report each quarter. So this quarter, you'll see 3 leases in Marshall. Those are sort of adopted leases. We acquired a couple of buildings closer to the highway recently in Marshall, and those short-term leases were renewed there. And then we have another lease in Waco at the hangar for McLeod Arrow, who I believe he is an alum of TSTC.
Cool. Is he the one with the China Air 747?
No, that's a parking lease, actually. We just
Oh,
leased a parking. It's a big spot, but it's a parking spot. And then the last report is the quarterly contracts greater than $1 million that the chancellor mentioned earlier. Believe it or not, there are no new contracts this quarter. However, next quarter, I think we'll start seeing more as the CCAP actual construction contracts come online. Rick, I think the gross maximum price numbers are now coming in on the projects, and once we get those, we will actually contract it. So no new activity here on this report this quarter. And then finally, I wanted to give a brief update on something that the board has spent a lot of time on, which is asset management. Jason Mallory did an audit, extensive audit, probably the most extensive one ever. He put his hands on 8,000 assets, but we have contracted with the vendor to implement RFID technology. We've just put in the order for the tags and the scanners. Really fascinating technology, how far you can ping stuff, and the size of the tag makes a difference on how far. But we expect to start tagging things here in the next 2 to 3 months, and should have it completely done by August 31st. So our annual inventory that's due August 31st should have RFID tags all over it. So.
Are we gonna tag Regents?
We are. We're gonna put tags on everything.
Tag Tiffany. Not sure where she's going. Hey, what is it?
Yeah, what's really in that name tag?
That's why Keith and I turned in our laptop. Being tracked.
If there are no other questions, that concludes our report.
Any questions for Chad? Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it. Yeah, we had our call, and I'll just say, I appreciate Chad and his team's clarity and completeness of the information. It's easy to understand, it's easy to ask questions, and so you guys do a great job. So, and that's not easy. So thanks for that. If there's any other questions, or that concludes our report.
Thank you, Ron. Now call on Keith Honey, Chair of the Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our committee met virtually on February 5th. It was Kevin, Rick, and I. We had a lengthy discussion and review of projects and contracts and all of the activities that are underway in the facilities area, which, as everybody knows, are quite extensive. So we have 3 minute orders today to present to the board. I think Kevin's going to do a couple and Rick will do one. And then just FYI, this handout that you received, I don't think Rick's going to spend a lot of time on it today. It's for your, I guess, perusal and review. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is a new report that Rick and his team are generating. I think as you look at it, you'll find it to be very helpful and interesting about what's happening, not only with the CCAP projects, but some of the other major projects that we have underway. So a lot of great information in a really condensed format. Very appreciative of this, Rick and Kevin and your teams. And I think this will help the board a lot. We'll get to see these
Yeah,
regularly.
we're doing a bi-monthly update of that, so every board meeting, we're getting updated copies.
Yeah. So that's a new and improved version of kind of an update for the board on what's happening in the construction area. So, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to let Rick know or Kevin know or me know, and we'll get you some answers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to review the.
Good morning. So we do have 2-minute orders. The first one is at the airport. And if you guys saw, we have quite a bit of activity at the airport, and here's another great opportunity for us. This minute order is for Zimmern Transportation. They would like to lease, and I'll read the actual minute order. TSTC College Board of Regents approved the lease agreement with Zimmern Transportation to lease 36,725 square feet of open land on the north side of the TSTC Waco Airport, and delegates authority to the Chancellor's designee to enter into and execute all necessary documents to execute said lease agreement. So if you guys look at, for example, at the second exhibit, Zimmern Transportation will come in and build a hangar on the north side of the airport with parking and apron space to be able to transport their aircraft in and out of that hangar space. So this will be one of the first developments in quite a while at the airport. So excited, not official yet, but we'll be working on that negotiation. So any thoughts, questions on that minute order? All right. The next minute order is, and I'll go ahead and just read it. TSC College Board of Regents delegate authority to the Chancellor and the designee to enter into and execute necessary amendments, extensions, and renewals of the interagency cooperation contract with the Texas General Land Office for natural gas utilities that reflect a total value that is greater than 25% more than the value of the original agreement. So back in 2019, we had an updated agreement, and basically this is stating that we will go over that $1 million, at least by a minimum of 25%. This particular agreement will end in 2026, so we'll be reviewing that a year prior just to make sure this is the best rates for TSTC. Any thoughts, questions on this minute order? Regent Honey, that's all I
Okay,
have.
thanks, Kevin. So I guess Rick's got one minute order he'd like to review.
The minute order before you is an amendment to the budget for the JBC Welcome Center. As my partners are giving me credit, one of the things we want to make sure we do in all our construction projects is make sure that the stakeholders are actively involved. As you know, we had a leadership change and marketing transition from BC or Deputy Chancellor Lawrence to BC Buttersworth, and I encourage Michael to really immerse himself in that design and make sure it's going to fit his vision for what he foresees that Welcome Center to be. As we were working on that particular program, we had an awesome presentation that was called a video wall. And as you would walk in, it would look like a wave, like basically like a water wave, but of all the digital screens coming over you. And it was the intent was to have a dynamic display that will show you all the various programs that we got, the technologies, opportunities, data. But as Michael and team was working, and as the project continued, what we found was, given the orientation of some of those video screens, they weren't going to be dynamic, they were going to have to be static, right? And as a result of that, Michael saw an opportunity to pivot away from it and involves some pretty robust company to come in and look at what can we do. And one of the things that I did on your packet is on the last slide on your packet is a rendering of the concept that Michael is introducing with that company he brought in. And this is basically a portal that a student will walk into and have a full interactive display, either through touchscreen or a kiosk, where they can navigate and explore the various programs that we offer at TSTC Waco. It's really cutting edge, it's really impressive, and I'm looking forward to see what the design is. The reason you have a minute order in front of you so late in the game is being that this was going to be more of I looked at it as an FF&E item, which is a furniture fixture equipment item, and it's going to be installed after the construction is over, right? But we'll be 100% done with construction, and then this company will come in and install their equipment. So originally, I was looking at it as a non-construction item, but as we worked with our partner, our CFO, and other leadership members, we felt it'd be more representative to be a part of the project. And that's why you see a minute order before you amending the budget versus just being a minute order for $1 million or more contract. So I just wanted to give you some context as to why we're introducing a minute order so late in the project. And this project is about a month away from being 100% complete, and we'll be moving in furniture. Really looking forward to the August meeting. When we're back on Waco, you'll be able to walk in that front door. And for those of you that've been here before, but I'm sure you'll be equally impressed, that JBC building is taking a transformation. It's amazing. It's really, really going to represent who TSTC is to all these new prospects that we're going to be bringing through the door. I don't know if you want to add any comment, Michael, on where we're at. Okay.
Appreciate all the teaming and support on it. It's been a great project. We're really looking forward to learning and this new kind of Welcome Center experience and learning from the return on investment so that we can bring more of these experiences to more TSTC locations.
And I'll add, the design the company is working with Michael is scalable. So as we introduce welcome centers around the state, we can take the same concept and apply it. The portal might not be as large, it might be a few more, a few less, depending on the location. But I really appreciate the fact that it is a scalable product that we can apply around the state as appropriate to the location.
And the idea, I think, too, Rick, is that, and Michael, the technology behind this would continue to be updated and upgraded on an ongoing basis. So it's not like it's a one-time put it in and it's 20 or 5 years it's out of date. It's going to continue to be updated and upgraded as we go along.
Yes, and there's been great partnership with OIT and Dale on the content management systems to make certain that when we build another location, we can tap into that same content infrastructure and not have one-offs or activations at Bob Bullock or at a high school or other areas or on our web, that we can really leverage smart content management systems to distribute new testimonials, new interviews, new products digitally and across the state and avoid one-offs.
Right.
Exactly.
Any questions? Thank you. The other thing we have is the major facility project status update report. The format on that is anything that's in a red font is a change to the report, just for your ease of reference. The items that are in the handout represent the majority of the projects that are in that master project update. Those that are not here is because they actually haven't kicked off. But the idea is to give you a simple to read and follow illustration of where our projects are. I really love the design. One of the project managers and the team came up with it, and it really was a home run. I really love the fact you got some pictures. So every 2 months, you'll get a refresh of where we are at the particular project, and then obviously update the work in progress. On the master project report, I want to draw attention to the Abilene project, CCAP project. Abilene's been a challenge. It was the first one that got off the ground. It's not a very large project, but we've had a few challenges on there. And the most recent one was that we underestimated our equipment costs on that particular project to the tune of about $3.5 million. That is a pending minute order that you will see. Technically, because we're not increasing the budget on the project, we know we're going to need more budget. It doesn't require an immediate minute order change to be put in front of you, but we are working with our instructional partners and getting that equipment list final. And once we do, and as Chad mentioned, and we get their gross maximum price established, we'll get a firm number, and then we'll come back to the board in the next board meeting with a minute order for that equipment increase that we saw. But
To put that in perspective, I think Rick's done a phenomenal job here. 3 million might sound like a lot of money, but that's 1% of all the projects Rick is managing.
That's pretty awesome.
That's a pretty outstanding number. So,
Thank you.
Especially,
yeah.
especially in consideration with supply chain and challenges. I can tell you that's exceptional.
It really is.
And that's one of the things that we're doing. Some of these GMPs have been released in phases, and that's just so that we can lock in the equipment costs so that they can issue out the POs to get them on order. Because some of these do have a 1-year lead time. Yeah. Thank you for that, sharing that, Chancellor. And one of the things I wanted to say is the construction delivery method that we've chosen is a construction manager at risk versus your traditional, you go to a contractor and they issue a sealed proposal with everything on there and it's fixed. From there, it's a change order war of add more money for this and more money for that and da. But what we do is we do a construction manager at risk, and what we do is we hire the contractor to work on pre-construction services and partner with the architect. So as the architect is designing the building, the contractor has a say and an opportunity to say, well, maybe not these materials or maybe not that particular equipment type because of lead time or cost. So they're in there with a stake in the game of making that project a success. That's why it's called at risk. So they are taking some of that risk as well. And that's one of the items that makes my job easy. In the Harlingen project, it's about a 50 million plus project, 3 different sites in Harlingen. We were 20 million over budget when the first estimate came out. But collectively with the architect, the construction manager, and the construction management services outfit that we worked on, we were able to value engineer that project and get it back under control. And we were able to meet the objective, meet the deliverable, but it's really a team effort, and that's really what makes our job easier because we have that level of flexibility, and everybody really has a stake in the game. It's a lot easier to work that way.
Wait, your job is easy? Can we talk?
It really is, Ron. I mean, I'd love to say it's a nightmare, but no, I got a great team. We've been fortunate that my partners have allowed us. I mean, we went from 2 project managers to 6. One of our new project managers that starts in a couple of weeks is a registered architect. So we're looking forward to take advantage of her skills and her licensure to do other creative things. I know, Regent, you mentioned that some of the opportunities we've got is not to reinvent the wheel. So with the architect in mind, we can use some of our existing designs. And as we look at new campus locations, we can take existing building concepts, adjust them to size, and be able to hit the ground running a little bit faster than where we are today because the designs are already there, right? So looking forward to that new project manager coming on board. That concludes my presentation. I know at closed session, we'll be talking about some real estate items,
Right.
and I'll expand a little bit more on some of those.
Right. Any questions for Rick?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Rick, for Eric and Ron's benefit, we've got currently over $3 million scheduled for construction management, which is new.
Mhm.
Why don't you expound on what that means?
So what we're using construction management services, and what they are is an owner's rep that's on the ground 100% of the time. Right, so we have traditionally, our project managers would be responsible for that. They'd be the boots on the ground, but given we are a state agency and we are all over the state and we want to grow, we introduced that concept. So instead of one project manager being able to manage one project manager should be able to manage multiple projects. It gives us the ability to scale quicker and puts the onus on our CMS partner to really hold the architect and the contractor to spec and to make sure that our expectations are met. So that's really, we're looking forward to the quality. One of the things that, we actually used it at a small project in Fort Bend, and they basically pay for themselves. As they're finding opportunities, as they're questioning change orders, as they're holding them accountable, at the end of the day, they end up paying for themselves with the money they save you to making sure that the project stays on task, on point, and more importantly, on spec. So thank you for bringing that up. It is a new service. For some of you that have been here with the Griffith Hall Nightmare, that's another thing that we've introduced. We've introduced 100% inspection, and we're also doing 100% video and photo documentation of our job sites. That includes every single wall in the facility that goes up. This way, when my partner's team goes in there, they need to know what's behind that wall. They can hit a few pictures and they'll know exactly what's behind that wall. So that documentation serves a lot. And the last thing that we're introducing is building information model and facility maintenance. So BIM to FIM is the acronym. So the idea there is, as we introduce equipment, we're making sure that the equipment we're installing is something that our facilities and physical plant maintenance people are ready and prepared to maintain. But also when we change over, when there's a changeover and we take ownership of the building, the contractor is accountable to populate all of our preventive maintenance and scheduled maintenance for every piece of equipment in that building. So Kevin's team doesn't have to worry about reading the manuals and keying all that in themselves. They'll get a reminder that says it's time to go do X, Y, Z on whatever particular piece of equipment. It's something new to what we're doing with the CCAP projects. And we learned that with the Griffith Hall when we did the change of ownership. It was, here's a box full of manuals, Kevin, have fun, right? And not only that, and I'll shamefully admit, one of the things that Kevin's team did when they walked in the door is they replaced the toilet paper dispensers because they didn't fit the inventory that they were doing. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I'll shamefully admit that, right? I'm not proud of it, but hey, we learned fossil fuels. I learned about toilet paper dispensers, right? It's all relative to our line of work, but anyway.
And big kudos to Rick. That's so important when you get a new building, right? And to have it populate into the systems that you're utilizing makes it life a whole lot easier for the team that's gonna maintain it. So thank you for that extra effort.
So
Yes, ma'am.
is this also in line, I love the idea of the deferred maintenance, and I know we talked about it at several meetings to have that, so that way we're not reacting when something shuts down, but we're being proactive about it, so I love that. Is this in line with the capital asset management in terms of the equipment, or it's separate? Like if you are the units, AC units, chillers, whatever, is that in line or that's separate from the capital?
That's
Yeah, it would really tie in.
Okay.
Now, obviously with a new, a building, new piece of equipment, a lot of those have maintenance and warranties. So we would manage it accordingly, right? So, but having it in the system and being able to see that on this date, it went active or went live, you have true, real data at your hands. So it makes managing and maintaining it a whole lot easier.
And for budget purposes
Yeah,
as
you
well.
can forecast your budget
Right.
expenditures accordingly.
Yeah, in the life of equipment, so you can plan for the future.
Just a clarification on the Abilene equipment situation.
Yes, sir.
That's not HVAC equipment.
No, this
or
is
electrical.
instructional equipment.
It's
yeah.
instructional equipment. So it's two different things, kind of.
Yes, sir.
The Abilene situation deals with, whatever kind of equipment we need to do our training with.
The diesel.
Drill presses or,
For that specific capital.
welding equipment, et cetera. So, yeah, it's kind of a.
That particular architect just missed the mark on the equipment estimation that we got on the pre-planning side of things. And fortunately, we found it and we'll adjust accordingly.
Rick, these are excellent, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll relay that to Michael Schumacher. He came up with the design.
Anything else for Rick? A lot going on, as you can tell, and Rick and his team and Kevin and his team are doing a great job. I hope you see that and see that they've got, definitely got TSTC interest at heart and doing a great job to ensure that takes place. So thank you guys and your teams.
Like Rick said, it's easy.
Yeah. Exactly.
It makes it look easy.
You get a great
No
team,
problem.
really, things really fall into place, they really do. I mean,
There's a lot of stuff.
And as bad as Griffith Hall was, I think we made some lemonade out of that.
oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, that's all you can do is learn.
It came, unfortunately, but it came at a good time because
It really did.
in launching the CCAP, we just are so far ahead because of Griffith Hall, I think,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
And then the other thing I'll mention is partnering with Jason on getting the auditors involved early in the project, concurrently as a project is being, in progress is gonna be a huge plus for us as well.
Yeah, that's another one where they paid for themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
Madam Chairman, that concludes our report.
Thank you.
Calling Bob Mizzo, Chair of the General Administration Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Tremont. So I'm excited to be supporting this incredible team. So this is a new role for me. So I'm excited to be supporting. So bear with me on my first time. But we actually had our working virtual meeting on February 2nd, which was a good meeting, the team. So it's Gail, Michael, Pamela, Cledia, and Dale all attended with myself. We've got two, so we have two proposed minute orders to present to the board. But kind of going through the discussion, there's a lot going on. And I tell you what, you've got an incredible team. So and what's kind of unique, so I come from a manufacturing background, and I've been a part of the board now for 1 year. This will be kind of my 1-year anniversary. And, and we talk about being a manufacturing, almost like a manufacturing company. And I've been in manufacturing all my life, and WIGs and the data that we're tracking, the things we talk about, we could be manufacturing widgets or tractors or semiconductor products. This is exactly how you run a manufacturing company. So it's actually really very cool. And I would say the team that we have here is exceptional, and the culture and the passion, the love for what people do. Every person I talk to, it's embraced, and I think it really makes it pretty exceptional. And I think it shows in the data. So spring and summer 2024 enrollment is up from last year, and I believe from our discussion, it's 104% up, which I think is incredible. I mean, and one of our discussions in the meeting, we talked about we've got a 13% increase right now for TSTC from spring to spring. And I said, well, how does that compare to other colleges? And I think you pulled up, the average right now is 2% up. So, we're exceeding, and we can't really compare ourselves because we're a whole different world. But still, if we had to compare ourselves, we're kicking butt. So dual credit partnerships are expanding, but we're focused on quality, not quantity. And I think that's really key. And I think that's important for our mission based on providing workforce. And, you look at the demand in Texas over the next 12 months, over the next 5 years, over the next 20 years, it's no matter what, we're going to have a hard time keeping up. It's a great place to be. So right now we've got career fairs right around the corner set up. I know one of West Texas, we've got 68 employers right now committed, I believe. I'm very impressed by the number of employers that are stepping up and saying, hey, this is important. I think there's a big focus on workforce development. HR has taken a very proactive approach and focus on curating our organizational health. We've got a 280 net gain in our employment in the last 12 months, at least in the gain in 2023, which I think is a healthy gain, and our attrition, our turnover rate is very low. Very healthy compared to for me, looking at a manufacturing company, very healthy in a manufacturing company world. Cybersecurity initiatives are taking place to ensure the safety and security of the college's digital assets and workplace. So this is the one thing in my life that keeps me up at night. It's one of the things when I was in manufacturing, it kept me up. And I think we're doing a very good job. So, the fact that we are as healthy as we are, I mean, knock on a lot of wood, and not having issues. I mean, I think we're doing a really good job, but that job is it never ends. So, and we'll talk more about that. And it is an election year. I'm not sure if you guys realize that. Maybe you didn't. So our government relations team is continuing to build relationships with legislators in Austin, which I think will be an interesting year. And who knows how it'll, I mean, I think we'll do very well, but who knows how we'll do from a legislation perspective, at least in Austin. So Political Action Committee, Friends of TSTC has been formed, which I think is pretty exceptional. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to provide influence. So kind of going through this process, there's 2-minute orders to present. And I would like to, I guess, have Michael start out by presenting proposed minute order GA 01-24C.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'll first read the minute order and then give a little bit of background and have some discussion on it. This approves contracts for advertising services where the contracts exceed $1 million and delegates authority to the chancellor or his designee to enter into and execute advertising services and necessary amendments and extensions with a value that exceeds 25% of the original advertising contract. This is to ensure compliance with the Texas Education Code, as our other amendments have gone in this area as well. The other important thing to point out is that the definition of advertising services is expanded in this minute order to include design, development, fabrication, and similar services. This relates to the prior expansion, such as the Waco Welcome Center, fabrication, and those elements. The other item to point out is that the scope of these services relate to growth predominantly, which is both new student growth, but it's also retention. The majority of our enrollment each cycle is actually the retention of students and recovery of lost students. So the marketing and advertising expenses go towards new business, customer retention, and they also address internal stakeholder needs related to HR and recruitment, GR and our messaging, and other kinds of internal services. So that's the scope of where these dollars are spent. Any questions? Thank you.
The next minute order, or okay, cool. So now I'd like to invite Pamela Mayfield to present proposed minute order GA 02-24C.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Committee Chair Miso, for those kind words that you said earlier. We really appreciate that. Gosh, as evident by all of my colleagues earlier spoken today, clearly you can tell the focus on our people is genuine. And it is from the heart. We really can't accomplish anything without our people. And so thank you so much for your support. We really feel the energy. One of the many benefits that we offer our employees is time away. As you could tell, this is a performance-based company. And so, but we also recognize we're humans and they need some time away to rest, rejuvenate, and to reflect. And so for your consideration before you on page 38 in your book is the proposed minute order that was mentioned earlier, outlining our proposed fiscal year 2025 employee holiday schedule. And the actual minute order reads as follows. Texas State Technical College Board of Regents delegates authority to our chancellor or his designee to establish the fiscal year 2025 employee holiday schedule for Texas State Technical College. And for your convenience, a copy of those days are actually listed on the page following, page 39. Any questions?
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Taking time off, recharging batteries, very important. Yeah, most definitely. So, does the board have any questions? So if the board has no following questions or comments, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Rella. Well, this concludes our committee section of the agenda. The open meeting of the TSTC Board of Regents on Thursday, February 8th, 2024, after proper posting and for the specific purposes provided in the Texas Open Meetings Act, including those in subchapter D, will recess and the closed meeting will begin shortly. In a moment, I'll ask the public to retire from this room The Regents will remain here to conduct the closed meeting. When the closed meeting is adjourned, the board will reconvene the open meeting. Current time is 12:29. Public may please retire now. open meeting of the TSTC Board of Regents reconvenes at 1:35 PM. We'll now consider the consent agenda. At this time, any region can request that an item or items be removed from the consent agenda so that it can be considered by the Board of Regents, by the board as a separate action item. Regents, are there any such amendments to the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion to approve all of the items contained in the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business? Is there any further discussion on items covered during the closed session today?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I have 4 minute orders to bring forward for consideration by the board. The first one is minute order CS01-24. I'll make a motion for approval. Is there a second?
You can do them all together.
No, I got to do them individually.
Okay, second.
Second one, or I guess we need to consider
Yes,
that,
vote.
Madam Chairman. We need to vote on that one.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Second minute order is CS02-24. I'll make a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Next minute order is CS03-24. I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Finally, minute order CS04-24. I'll make a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there any,
Second.
is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries.
One more item, Madam Chairman. I would like to make a motion that the board consider and approve the code of conduct that's been prepared and reviewed by the board.
Is there any further discussion?
I move to approve the code of conduct.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. So the Regents took action to adopt the code of conduct as an essential corollary to the bylaws, and they've so been approved. Chancellor, do you have any comments?
I do, if I could. I understand there was a discussion at some point in time about the August board meeting date. If I could, I'd like to take just a brief moment and highlight that in the summer before every legislative session, we are obligated by state law to prepare what is called the legislative appropriations request. It's actually about 6 or 7 documents, and each one is particularly big. At the same time, we do our normal annual budget preparation, and also we are closing out the accounting year. We are also preparing for a new semester, the fall semester. We proposed to you earlier, management did, an early date in August, but we have in so doing created compounded the amount of work that has to get done in those few weeks. So we are requesting some collaborative efforts with the board to see if we can identify a date later in August in order to have the August meeting. State law requires that you approve our budget before August 31st, but we probably won't have it done until sometime early in August. So So there's a needle we're trying to thread there, and I'm not sure how you would like to try to do that. We could do like a doodle poll or exchange information by email and see what dates might work. From the perspective of management, we'll be glad to be here any day you want. It could be a Saturday, a Sunday, it could be 6 o'clock at night. We'll hold a board meeting whenever you want. We just request, could we do what we could to try to move it further back so we don't kill our people?
That was a 2-day meeting, right? Those
Yes,
2 days?
because that's the budget, yeah, that's the budget.
Because originally we had 7 and 8, and then, I know we had
That's
talked,
right.
we had talked about moving it to 21, 22.
Yes.
Well, I had heard that it was possible that that was problematic for some of you.
I think we'll sort it out. We'll have to discuss it and compare our calendars.
Y'all will? Okay.
Yes,
Just let us know what you want and we will follow your lead.
absolutely.
And with that, I'd like to thank all the hospitality people who helped us with the meeting this time, the events people who put everything together. And with our partners down in Austin who help us keep our best foot forward.
Anything else, Chancellor?
No, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you. On behalf of the Board of Regents, I'd like to welcome again Eric Beckman.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on board. Chancellor, you beat me to it in thanking everyone, but I'd like to thank the leadership team for accommodating the Board of Regents. Thanks for hosting us here in Waco. Regents, do you have any final comments?
Good meeting.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all. Is there any further business before we close?
We have to-go lunches out here by the windows. So if you're in a grab and go, we're ready for you. If you want to linger and have lunch, that's good too.
Well, with there being no further business, the meeting of the Texas State Technical College Board of Regents is adjourned at 1:42 p.m.